they haven't saved their retirement. They're drowning in debt. Probably their child's going to have to care for them sometime in the future because they haven't planned for their retirement.
They get a car that they can't afford and then their payment is like $1,000 or more. You should be shamed because that is like your child's college fund or your future retirement.
This is like one of the most controversial topics you can possibly talk about because you're going to have people on both sides.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Lauren and I are back for our weekly episode where we talk all things money. Now, Lauren, I had made this statement online the other day, and apparently it was extremely polarizing because half the people who responded were in complete agreement, and the other half thought it was like the wildest statement ever. But I had basically said that I feel like most people would be, you know, at least in a good or like a decent financial situation if they cut all the BS spending from their life. And like, look, there's definitely like caveats there, and it's not going to apply to everyone, but I do think it applies to a lot more people than they're willing to admit. And by BS, I mean like those random Amazon purchases, the Target runs, the daily Starbucks, the door dashing their lunch to work, the self-care stuff that people like say they need, or like the crazy expensive gym memberships. Like, I feel like cutting those sort of things could really free up your income to do the stuff that actually matters, like paying off debt, building up an emergency fund, investing for retirement, you know, like those things that are going to get you to like a solid financial situation. But I don't know. I just feel like when it comes to money, people have such strong beliefs because they're so wrapped up in their emotions. And I think it's because money, like people tie it so closely to like their identity and who they are, and like they're almost like their self-worth, like how much money you make or what your financial situation is. I feel like people really tie that deeply into their emotions.
What was the argument for, if people were saying that they didn't agree with you, what was their argument? I don't understand.
Well, some people were like, you must be a boomer. I'm like, no. Other people were like, no, it's because like housing is crazy expensive or income hasn't kept up, which are all true things. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, if you're spending $500 to $1,000 a month on just random stuff, you know, it's like both things can be true. You know, like you could cut the BS and do better, and housing could be crazy expensive. But that was one of the main arguments, is like housing is expensive and income hasn't kept up.
Yeah. And I feel like we hear this all the time too. Like everything is just so expensive now. Because if you make these suggestions, it is always like everything is just so expensive. Yeah. Like we can't help it. And it's like, I get that point, but then you're going to have to make some adjustments, and they're not going to be fun adjustments. Do you want to be being able to spend however you want? Do you want to be able to go out for coffee every single day? Yes. But it's like, at the end of the day, that stuff is going to matter if you reel it back a little bit, but we don't want to. We're entitled to that. We work hard. Yeah. You know, it's uncomfortable to make all those changes. So instead, we're just going to blame it on, you know, everything else. And I'm a hard believer in that because, you know, I've changed my lifestyle drastically to get out of debt. And I think a lot of people are just, they're not willing to make those changes. So I definitely, I hear both sides of those arguments, but yeah, I see it.
Yeah. And like, I mean, to be fair, like I do all those things that I listed as like BS spending, but like the difference is like, you know, like my wife and I, we built to that, you know, like we prioritize like, all right, let's pay off our debt, build up the emergency fund, get our investing in order. Like we wanted to buy a house. So we slowly built up to introducing like the more like lifestyle expenses into our budget. And a lot of people, unfortunately, like whether it's because how they were raised or what they didn't learn, they do it the opposite way. You know, they build the lifestyle and then they try to take care of the finances. And then it's just so hard. But I do feel like people tend to have these wild money beliefs, and they're so deeply tied into their emotions. So I thought today would be the perfect time to go through some of these controversial money opinions and give our take on them.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So this first person put that you should tip less if the service is bad.
I just thought that was like what you were supposed to do. Like people who, I mean, honestly, Lo, like, why are you giving a tip if your service is bad? I just actually went to a restaurant the other day, and I definitely didn't tip 20% because it was awful service. I actually had to go ask for my check because I was just, the person was just nowhere to be seen. And the whole time it was just very much like that. So I don't know. We live in such a tipping culture now that it's just like, you're being prompted to tip for absolutely everything. I was just at a baseball game yesterday, and I bought like a walking taco and a drink. And of course it was like $30. And the first question is, how much do you want to tip? I'm like, they literally grabbed it from the shelf and handed it to me. I'm not going to tip. Mm-hmm. So you have to go in and put like $0. Like they want you to hit the 20%. And I'm like, that's so insane. So I think like this is a controversial take because we're in such a tipping culture these days that it's just expected no matter what the service is. I don't know. For me, I'm like old school like that, especially at like a restaurant. Like if you're giving me bad service, like I'm not going to give you some awesome tip, and we're good tippers. I'll tip you if it's really good service. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. This just, I don't like where we've went with this whole tipping thing. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know if people are gonna like this rule that I have. Me and my wife, we both like. She's been like radicalized by tipping culture. I swear, like she's like so like hardcore about tipping. Like not like you always got to tip, but she's very much like. And I definitely agree with this. Like if you order standing up, you don't tip. Because you know the service you get at a restaurant is your waiter or waitress like do they give you like good service? Do they check in on you? Do they refill your water consistently? You know, like do they ask you how the meal's going? Right? That to me is the service that you're tipping for. But if you just like are going to like I don't know some random, not necessarily like a sit down restaurant, and someone at the front just takes your order and then you know they ring a bell and you go pick it up when it's ready. You know, that kind of stuff we don't typically tip for. But then when we do like a sit down restaurant, I would say like at a minimum we always do 15%, and then if it's good, like more than that, you know? But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you said, everyone expects tipping now when I don't think you need a tip when the job is performed as expected. You know, like you're ideally you should tip because the service was above what you would expect. You know, like if I just go order a drink at Starbucks, you're getting paid, you know, an hourly wage to make that drink. And I don't really know that you made it any better if I tipped or didn't, you know? So I don't know. That's kind of how I am about tipping.
Yeah. I feel like there's times like if I go to a local coffee shop, I will tip there because I know that it's like a local small business. But places like Starbucks, I'm probably not going to. But yeah, in my local coffee shop. And I think like the tip is like $1 or something because like it's just a drink. You know what I mean? So it is like a small amount. So I will do it in things like in like situations like that. But yeah, like I could not believe I was being prompted to tip at the baseball game last night. Like that's insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, and like, I feel like it needs to be studied, but like the psychology of just not quickly pressing, like you just want to hurry up and get your transaction process that you're like, I feel like there's probably a big amount of people that just like hit like 20% and just like charge it. You know what I mean? Or
like the shame too.
Yeah.
I feel like if they could, you know, scan your brain while that pops up, like they would see, like I think people click it more often because they feel ashamed if they don't.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, this one is kind of similar. So splitting checks evenly, even when everyone ordered different amounts, is unfair. What do you think?
I'm like kind of like 50-50 on this one. So like, let's say I'm at like a bachelorette party or something, and we get some appetizers and, you know, food and stuff like that. Like sometimes I'm like, if it's like within a few dollars, I don't care. But I do feel like in certain situations, like I'm not a big drinker. So if people are drinking and then I'm splitting everything and it includes their drinks, then that's a lot more than I actually would have been spending. So I feel like, I think it depends on the situation. Like if you're splitting apps, whatever, and or like we're talking a few dollars, like I think that's fine. But yeah, in those bigger situations, because I think I did run into that problem. We just used an app called Splitwise, and you can just like split everything. But it was the problem with the alcohol because I don't drink, so I wasn't drinking those $15, $20 cocktails, and that's really going to make a difference, I think, in those bigger situations. So I'm kind of like 50-50. It really depends on the situation. What about you?
I feel like I gotta be like, I gotta like mentally prepare myself beforehand. Like if we're going to like a group dinner, like for someone's birthday, I'm like, okay, I'm going to walk in and expect that we're probably going to split it evenly amongst like 8 people or something. I'm like, all right, that's fine. Whether I eat more, drink more than other people or less, you know, I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But if I'm like just like going out to eat with like, I don't know, a couple people, and then like we order our own things, kind of different amounts, and then they're like, oh, you want to just split it like down the middle? I'm like, no, I ordered, you know, what I ordered, especially when it comes to the drinks. Like, because you order 2 or 3 drinks and that's like $40-$50 right there if it's at like a, you know, a nice restaurant. I feel like to me it depends on the occasion, you know. In most cases though, I'd rather just like pay for what me and my wife order, and then, you know, you pay for what you order, and then there's no biggie, you know. Yep,
exactly. I think you just got to be like, and that we went out to dinner this past weekend with like a family, and I just went up to, again, this was the place where I had to go up and ask for our check, but I was like, hey, can you just split it in half? Like, or, you know, my husband and me, and then the family over here. Like, I just like asked for it. I feel like sometimes people get nervous about like, put us on this one and them on there. I'm just like, hey, this is what we're doing, you know?
Yeah.
We're splitting food. So yeah. Let's do this one. Saving for your kids' college should not come before saving for your own retirement.
I agree with that. right? Like I feel like you like my favorite analogy is you put on your mask before the other people, you know, like when you're on a plane and the air mask, the oxygen mask drops, like you put yours on before everyone else because you can't help other people if you're sitting there suffocating yourself. So I don't know. I feel like, especially when it comes to retirement, like if you don't take care of your financial needs now, chances are they're going to come back to bite you even worse later, especially if you don't set up a retirement fund. You know, there's 20 years of your life when you're older that you're probably not working. Like, who's going to take care of you then, you know?
Yeah. And I also think about, because I do know parents who have gotten to crazy amounts of student loan debt, like the Parent Plus loans. And those are in their name. Whether they say the kid's going to pay it or not, it's in their name. So they don't really have a choice. But I do know a lot of parents who get themselves in that situation. And then I feel like it's almost like kind of counterintuitive, because then if you think about it, they haven't saved for their retirement. They're drowning in the debt. And now their child's going to have to care for them sometime in the future because they haven't planned for their retirement. So I'm like, it's honestly like, just let the burden, I guess, of student loans on your own child instead of yourself, because your child's going to end up taking care of you in the future because you're not going to have anything put away for retirement because you're too focused on them. And then you're just setting them up. I would rather my parent be set up for success for retirement than having me to like have to take care of them because they tried to fund my college, if that makes sense. I don't know, just something I think
100%. Yeah, I always dislike situations when people say like, oh yeah, and I also have this other loan that's in my mom's name, but I'm going to pay for it. I'm like, they should have just not taken it out. You know, or you should have gone to a college that was maybe a little bit more affordable. You know, like there's so many different paths other than, well, this person has a debt, but I'm going to pay it back for them. And a lot of people do that. And of course, like, you know, it depends on individual circumstances as well. But I don't know, to me, I would always rather go to a college that you can afford and take out a debt that's reasonable compared to what you should be able to afford once you graduate as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's move to this one. Most people track every single expense just to feel in control, but it doesn't actually matter.
I feel like this one's coming straight at me because I track every single expense.
Yeah.
And I will say I do it because it does make me feel like I have control of my money.
Yeah.
And sometimes I am like, you know, like once the month is done, like everything balances out and then I'm good to go. And then it's like, all right, spending the amount of time that I did or tracking each one, did that really matter? You know? And I will say, like, once you're out of debt and once you have built up your emergency fund and you're investing for retirement, like you have all your, like your automated system for your money, tracking individual expenses matters much, much less. But I will say, if you need to have more control because you've lived your life without it, then like, it does give you that control. And then in that case, it does actually matter. So I feel like this statement is true the higher up on like the financial like journey you are, you know, but the lower you are, like stuck in debt, everything matters. Every single expense that you write down will matter. Yeah.
I was going to say that was me, like the beginning of my debt-free journey. When I started tracking, it made the most sense. Now, like I definitely still track, but like, do I have to necessarily? No. And the same thing with you. You wouldn't really have to. It's not like you're going to get into debt if you don't. You just like to. But yeah, I feel like there's like two different like paths there that it makes sense for some, others maybe it doesn't actually matter. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like what matters more than tracking every single expense is, are you spending less than you bring in, and then is there extra that you can put towards the money goal? You know, if you could do that every single month, then whether you tracked everything or not matters much, much less, you know, because then you're obviously doing well, you know, or like you're making progress, which is to me a sign of doing well. Okay, what about this next one? Owning a home isn't always the American dream, and renting can be smarter. I agree with this. I think there's people who don't want to own homes. They don't want to have to manage anything. Honestly, like, I'll be honest, like I've been a homeowner. I'm currently a renter, but renting is really nice. When our ceiling fan was leaking during a rainstorm, I was like, okay, that can't be good. I just called the landlord and they sent somebody over, which was really nice. Now I do think long-term it makes more sense. Like, again, depending on where you're at, sometimes like if you're in a bigger city, a higher cost of living city, it might not make sense for you, or you just really prefer the renting lifestyle. We need to get away from this like shaming. Like, this is like one of the most controversial topics you can possibly talk about, because you're going to have people on both sides that are just like, you know, so like so single-minded about it that they can't even possibly think that it might make sense for somebody to just rent. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, Yeah, I agree in the short term, like renting versus owning, like it's almost always going to be cheaper to rent, you know, but and then I also believe as well, like, you know, by the time you're 60 or you want to retire or whatever it is, it's nice to have a steady housing expense inside of your budget as opposed to one that could go up every single year. And granted, like insurance and property taxes, those things do go up, but I don't believe that those go up at the same rate that rent will increase, you know, year after year. Like, especially if you look at like a 10-year period, the amount that you're paying more in property taxes than when you started is going to be wildly less than what someone's paying for rent over a 10-year period. But I mean, we also just moved into our new house after finishing all the renovations for it. And the first night, the water heater isn't working. So we took cold showers for a couple of days until we could get it fixed. And, you know, and it wasn't like when we were renting, we just submit a service request and someone comes and fixes it. It's like, no, we got to call our home warranty, and then that was going to take too long, so we called someone out to replace it. You know, it's just it's a whole thing. So I feel like owning isn't for everyone in the moment. You know, I think there's a time and place for it, and it also depends on like what you value as well. I value the ownership of this home, being able to do whatever we want to do with it. Some people don't really care about that, you know.
I don't know if I really care about that, but I do care about being able to have dogs in my house, and like I hate having to I hate having to like talk to landlords about it. So like I prefer that. But I do not like maintaining a home. I will tell you that right now. Our rental, like we have to maintain like the back like landscaping, and it's a nightmare. I can't stand it. But yeah. Let's talk about the next one here. Credit card points hacking is overhyped.
I love this one because I kind of agree with it, you know? Like, I don't know. I feel like there's so much more complexity in your life, just like as you think about your money, if you're trying to prioritize like hacking credit card, you know, like the credit card point game. I prefer just to have like one or two credit cards that you use for pretty much everything. And then those are the points that you accumulate. So you kind of just pick and choose what's going to be your best return on investment for doing that, you know? But I know that there are a lot of people who have like 6 or 8 credit cards, and they're like, no, for that purchase, I use this and that and that. And, you know, if you have your whole system, it's probably not that complex. In my mind, though, I'm like getting to that point. I'm like, I don't really care to like look at all these different credit cards. Like I have my one, gives me Southwest airline points, and that's what we fly all the time. So I love it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that there has to be something about, I mean, we know that people, you know, use credit card points to go on trips or whatever. And I think that's awesome. But I also wonder, like, how much more are they actually spending just to get those points? You know what I mean? Like, is it just everything that you would normally spend, or are you like justifying it? Like, oh, I'll get points for this, so let me purchase this. Because I think that happens a lot. And then that's not worth it for me. Like, I'm like you, I have one credit card, and it, you know, that's not how that's not how I'm building wealth, I guess. Sure, points are nice from time to time, but it's nothing that's like radically changed my life. So yeah, I think it's kind of overhyped.
100%. It's like the cherry on top. And like, if you get it, cool. If you don't get it, like, it's probably not going to make that big of a difference. Okay. This next one, I have very strong opinions on. So I'm curious about what you think. College isn't worth it for most people.
Yeah, I kind of agree with this. I do think I think things are changing, but like, I feel like 10 years ago, maybe even more, it was like you had to have a bachelor's degree to get a job. So people were just going to just get a bachelor's degree. Do I think every single college, like people should be going to out of school universities where they're taking $150,000 in debt? No. But I do think college can be worth it. I think it just depends on how you go about it to get that degree. Like, be smart about it. Go to the community college to take out minimal student loans if you can. Like, I think we just need to reframe how we're getting this degree. But I do feel like I think we're heading away from it, but I do feel like we're still like, need a bachelor's degree. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like rarely, unless you're going to a specific field, it's rarely like a specific degree. You just have to get one. So I see this, but I think you just need to be smart about it, I guess. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that college isn't worth it for most people. I don't know if I would just say most people, but I would say it's definitely not worth it for all degrees.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, is your degree going to have a return on investment? And, you know, I think you had posted that video on TikTok, and like people were going crazy about that statement. Yeah. it's a math equation, you know, like how much are you going to spend going to college? What's the interest rate that you're going to borrow at? And what's your first year expected income going to be? And can you even get a job with that degree? Because there are a lot of people who graduate college that can't even get a job with that degree. And, you know, they're working some random job with a degree that costs them 60, 70, 80 grand. Like that is just not worth it. I think like higher education is worth it, but that's also like can be in many different forms as well. You know, not necessarily you need to sit in a lecture hall with a professor teaching you something, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I think the people that were arguing that it's just like a justification for massive amounts of student loan debt. And that is not a justification for it. You can be a little bit smarter about how you're going about it.
100%.
This one's fun. Buying new cars is fine. Stop shaming people.
This is one where I would make that statement. For most people, buying a new car is not fine, I don't think. I think if you're in the right spot, buying a new car probably just makes sense. And at that point, like for your finances, it probably just doesn't even matter whether you buy new or used. I think most people, though, they get a car that they can't afford and then their payment is like $1,000 or more. And I'm like, that was just ridiculous. Like you should be shamed because that is like your child's college fund or your future retirement in that $1,000 per month payment. Yeah,
I think there's a time and place for a new car. So let's say you want like, I don't know, I'm on like car TikTok for some reasons. It's because I love looking at like that Lexus SUVs. They're so expensive. Like I would love to have a Lexus GX, but it's like 80, 90 grand. And then I'll go to like Google like 2020 Lexus GX. Obviously it looks different now, but they're like 40,000. And I'm like, that's what you have to look at right there. So I got a new CRV back in the fall, but it was like a $35,000, you know, plus tax, like $35,000 car, and it's going to hold its value for a long time. So I feel like, would I buy new for like a modest car? Sure. Am I going to go spend $80,000 on a vehicle? No, because it's going to depreciate rapidly. You know what I mean? Like, I also think it depends on, are you buying a new car and then keeping it for like 10 plus years? Because that's what I plan to do. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people will justify buying a new car. They'll take a hit on that depreciation and then they're ready to trade it in again to buy another new car. And then they have $1,000 payment. And I'm like, this just does not make sense. I think there's a time and place for it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. But yeah, it doesn't justify you buying a car that you absolutely cannot afford.
100%. Okay, what about this one? Grocery delivery is worth the markup.
Yeah, we actually really like grocery delivery. Eddie will now I go to the grocery store most of the time, but if I'm not here, Eddie will definitely do the grocery delivery. He loves it. I will say I've done it a few times because I'll get, Instacart got me. They'll be like, oh, you have a free delivery or something. There's always all these fees, whatever. But it is nice. And what I will say is, I think it can be worth the markup because you're picking out exactly what you need. You're not going into the store and like random things are falling into your cart. And then that's the difference anyway. You know what I mean? So I do think it's worth it. And you save a lot of time. Like I don't have to go to the grocery store, waste my time there. I can be doing other things, cleaning, you know, whatever. I personally, we like it. Or the grocery pickup where you just go and get it out front of the store. I think it can be really valuable to like save money because you're not. When I go into a regular grocery store, there's random stuff in the cart, you know?
Oh, 100%. You said that. I was like, that's actually a really good point. Because every time I go, I'm like, oh, we need like this 100%. Or that. The one time I like, what really changed my opinion about it is I was working with this family and they were saying that they started doing like the online ordering. And I think they would just go to the grocery store and pick it up.
Sure.
They would like bring it to your car. But because they had like I don't know, four small kids. And so it was like, if you go to the grocery store, it's like a family event that you're doing.
Yeah.
And the kids it's hard to say no to the kids. But if you just say, oh no, we're just sitting in the car and they're bringing it out, there's no saying no, you know, like that, you skip that whole interaction.
Yep. Big time. Oh, this is a good one. Subscription culture, Netflix, Spotify, whatever, is the best deal of our time.
It is. We're like reverting back to basically just paying for cable. Cause there's now you can like buy like bundles of subscriptions of apps and it's like $80 a month or something. I'm like, that's exactly what like AT&T or like DirecTV used to cost or whatever it is. I don't know. It's kind of annoying because it's like, I want to watch that show or that show or that show, but you got to have like 5 different subscriptions. I think most people lie to themselves if they say like, oh, like, you know, I couldn't survive with just one. Like you can rotate, you know, like get 1 or 2 watch your favorite shows and movies and rotate to the next one. I will say though, like the streaming wars is it's pushing movies and better shows out, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Now we love our we love our Netflix and all that stuff. But what I'll say is we did just do like a subscription detox because we were finding we have everyone possible. The Disney, the Hulu's, the HBO Max, Paramount, Amazon. We have it all. Netflix. What other ones are there? I don't even know. We had all of them and we were like, you know what? We don't even watch this. Like I'll watch a random show here and there, but I'm like, I don't need all access to all this. So we actually did cancel a bunch of those, but I don't think it's the best deal of our time. I think before, like we used to get mad because like cable was $80 and now I'm like, how many subscriptions do I have and how's this adding up? So we did cut some of those and I think we're going to start rotating them, but that takes time and that takes like effort to do. But what I will say is, I do think it's getting crazy. So we had YouTube TV. Eddie had that because he would get the NFL Sunday ticket. So I think YouTube TV is like $80 a month or something. And then the NFL Sunday ticket is literally like, I think he said it went up, I don't know, like $800 this year or something. He's like, that's insane. Like to do that.
Yeah.
So we're not doing it. We got rid of YouTube TV. We're not giving into that. I said, go to a bar and watch it and like enjoy a drink. You're going to spend way less than you would by paying that, Sunday ticket or whatever. So yeah, we're getting out of the subscription culture for the time being. Cause I think everything is a subscription. I think we're just taking over. I don't know.
Oh yeah. It's super annoying. I like that though. Just go to a bar and have a drink and you'll have more fun anyway, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one here. This person put, I understand family and traditions, but weddings are a massive waste of money.
I feel like I don't know. I sit somewhere in the middle of this. I think weddings are out of control. I think you could throw a similar party, but if you didn't call it a wedding, it would cost way less. But it's like everything that's branded as like a wedding or whatever is just so much more. Yeah. And I just think we've just got into like crazy like bachelorette parties now. And like everything just costs so much, but I don't know. I think some people really hold this like deep, they really want a wedding for the family and stuff. I do think it can be a waste of money if you're inviting people that you don't even know to your own wedding.
Yeah.
That's like a hard no. I wish we would have been a little bit more picky about ours. Our wedding was only like 100 people, 110 people. That was during COVID. So we couldn't go much more than that. But there are like probably like 30 more people I would have just cut out because we don't really talk to them, but I definitely think it can be a waste of money, especially if you're spending 30, 40, 50 grand. And if you're going into debt for it, I think I'd add that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd ever say it's like a waste of money, but I definitely think people can spend way more than they needed to on a wedding. Like we kept our wedding budget to like 10 grand. And honestly, like, I mean, I would never say this, but we went to another wedding and it was, I would never say it, but I'm totally going to say it right now. We went to another wedding that was like 20 or 30 grand from what we had heard. And I was like, I enjoyed our wedding so much more. And I'm probably biased, but like we had way much more fun at ours.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, I think people spend way more than they need to. And there's so many like social expectations around what weddings should look like that it gets you to spend a dollar amount that's crazy. Like I think people spending $40,000 on a wedding, like the average person, is an insane amount of money to spend. So I don't know. Some people just want to show off. Honestly, we had a pretty non-traditional wedding, which I loved. We did not do bridal parties. It was just us. I just had like honestly, I'm not a flower person. What did I have in like our centerpieces? Eucalyptus leaves and like bottles and stuff. So like I didn't really have flowers. I had one bouquet that my friend had to tell me to order like a month before because I like didn't know I had to do that. So I had one bouquet for myself, and like so we did cut a lot of out on that side of things. Like I guess just spend on what you want, and then we also had a live band, and like that was what we wanted to spend money on. But yeah, people said they had a fun time at our wedding, and it was like pretty affordable for the city we were living in. But yeah. I know I can see where people are going with this because I've seen some insane weddings where I'm just like, okay, you do you know? Yeah. I think you got to like pick your 2 or 3 categories that you're like, these are the most important things. So I'm going to spend more of my money there. But like for us, like having the big grand cake was not a priority. So we were like, all right, let's get like a nice, like reasonably like $200 or $300 cake that was like really well designed and everything. And it was small, and we just did it for the cutting. And then everyone else had like donuts available, like a wide variety of donuts. And we did a taco cart, and like that, honestly, I was like, I loved having tacos at our wedding. Like that, I was a huge fan of. But we spent more money on other things. So, it just it made up for it there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, that wraps up today's episode. And as always, if you learned something new or you got a good laugh in, the best way you can help us grow is by subscribing and sharing this with a friend.
Yeah, and follow us on TikTok. Also, if you want to have your money question answered on the show, you can visit our website, justanothermoneypodcast.com, and click the submit a question button. And don't forget to join us for another episode of Just Another Money Podcast. The information, opinions, and recommendations provided on this podcast are for entertainment purposes only and do not constitute professional financial advice. Any financial decisions you make based on the content of this podcast are your responsibility. We strongly recommend consulting with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any significant financial decisions. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that we are not liable for any financial outcomes.